Okay. Tonight's class is Armoring 101. This is going to be geared for the new fighters. What I'm hope to accomplish is showing you every bit of armor that I've ever worn since I've been in the SCA, and the choices that I made in the armor, any kind of modifications I made to it so that it was legal, if it was a modern sports gear or something of that nature. That way you can see what your options are. Okay? There's also some books up here with some really nice pictures. You can collect the ISBN numbers off of them, go to your local bookstore, Barnes & Noble. They'll usually order the book for you if they don't have it in stock already. The books that I brought, which have really nice illustrations in them, are actually children's books. But they are not written like a children's book. They're written for adults to actually read and enjoy. I enjoy them immensely, only because the illustrations are that good. Those three are right there. Callie also brought some other books. He has one on medieval military costume. That's an excellent book because it has a lot of excellent photographs of authentic armor that's worn by some recreationists or recreationists in Europe, I believe. I can't remember. I haven't read that book in a long time. To begin with, when you're setting your armor up on the cheap, because your funds are low, and these times with the way finances are rolling right now, cheap is good, because nobody wants to spend a whole lot of money. They first get out there, start fighting, and they find out they really may not want to do that. So they can go on to something else. That way they're not investing a huge amount of money into it. First thing I'm going to start with, your helm. That's your most important thing. That's the thing that you should be spending the most money on, because that's protecting your most vital part, and that is your brain. Mine was actually made by Duke Michael of Bedford, and it's made out of 14 gauge stainless steel. It is a really stout helmet, and it's really heavy. You can come up and look at it after I'm done teaching and pick it up. If you want to stick your head in there, go ahead, but I wouldn't suggest it. But it gives you an idea. It's a good helmet. It looks nice, and it's served me well. Next thing we're going to do is we have kidneys. What I had done, because over time, when I originally started out with, was solid aluminum breastplates. I had an armor in Florida, and I can give you the address. His name is Bocalo Armory. He's out of Florida. He made all of my armor when I first began. It's all made out of aluminum. It's very light. When you put the loaner armor, you'll understand why light is good. You'll find that you move a lot easier in it. Still offers you protection. It looks nice, but I don't suggest it if you want something that's going to last. You'll see why when I pick those pieces up. Kidney protection. All I did with this is I have some blue foam from a camping mat. Real cheap, cost $5 to buy the roll. On it is got two pieces of plastic that's attached to it, and it's sewn into pockets. What I would do is wrap it around like this, tie it shut, my kidneys are protected. Mostly my abdominals are too. Unfortunately, I gained some weight over the holidays. Can't get close anymore there, but it was light. It's comfortable because this is canvas, so it's cotton, so it breathes well. And in the middle of the summer, it did what it was supposed to do. For my upper chest and shoulders, lacrosse gear. Played against sports. You can buy it secondhand, and it'll cover exactly what it needs to. I've gotten hit fairly stoutly in this, and didn't have much issue. Now, for somebody who's really, really bony, you might want to wear a little extra padding. You know, I have some thickness up there, so most of the shots that I got here, I have some cushion to absorb the blow. But this is really good. For the stuff that was going to be exposed, when I would lift my arm up over my head, my sleeve would fold back a little bit, so I covered what was exposed in leather. That way it wasn't that noticeable, and it wasn't, ungodly. It didn't look like this, so everybody was like, "Ooh, that looks nasty." And all I did is hot glue it down. Real simple. For knees, hockey knees, these have been modified. That's a 1/4 inch piece thick of leather. This is what they call sole bend leather. Costs you about $120 for a side going to Tandy leather. And then some of the blue foam again, and it's just Chicago screwed to the plastic. I sewed on the foam of the knee pad itself, I sewed a volleyball knee pad to it. So it does not come off. And you slide them off, you can wear sweats or whatever other kind of trousers you're gonna wear over top of it, where you're not gonna see the plastic. It still offers the amount of coverage that you need, and it's comfortable. For your shins, soccer shin guards, that's all you need. You can wear them under your trousers. It offers just enough protection that if somebody hits you low, it's not going to hit the bone and it's not going to hurt. It will sting when it hits the muscle, but not as bad as hitting that bone. These are fairly cheap. Again, Play It Again Sports, easy way to go. For your arms, these are actually my first set of arms, and this is my sword arm, and it is getting, we can see it's getting pretty wore out. And that's aluminum. It's really light, and you see it has a lot of play there. That's the worst thing about aluminum. It wears out. You got two different kinds of metals being riveted together. The rivets are harder than the aluminum. The aluminum starts to bore out. So it gets a little loose and it gets a lot of play in there. It's not, this leather has basically been carboiled on my arm because of the sweat. It's solid as a rock now. And I've taken some stout shots with this. It used to be splinted like this arm. This arm I don't ever use. This is my shield arm. So you can see the difference. Something that's been used to something that's never getting used. These are fairly easy to make. If you want to do something in leather, we can help you with it. We can help you cut out a pattern for it. It just depends on what your personal tastes are and how you want it to look. A lot of that is going to be what you're trying to lean towards in your persona. Your persona is going to make up a lot of difference in your armor, and you'll see where I progress to. Because in different time frames, armor looked a little differently throughout history. And some of those books will show a nice progression in the illustrations on how armor progressed. I went to this as far as my breastplate. These plates can be bought separately. I didn't buy this put together, I put this together myself. The plates are fairly inexpensive. I will give Callie the information to where you can order them from. For all of these plates, and this was almost 200 plates to put this whole breast piece together that fits me, I think I paid just around $200. And then it took me about 2 weeks to lace them all together. So it's not very difficult. The shoulder straps this is all sole bend leather, so it's fairly stout. This actually covers my collarbone, and then around here on the back, it covers my shoulder blades. During Penzic this year, I've gotten pounded on by unpadded pole arms, and this held up well. And I didn't take much abuse at all, which was surprising. I was glad it worked that well. The gorget, my gorget is fairly simple. This is probably the easiest thing to make. It doesn't take a lot of rocket science to make it. This is several layers of leather. This actually used to be my Squire Brothers, and I think I've worn it for the last 6 years. So very rare if your helmet fits perfectly that you're going to get hit in the neck and or in the throat, but it can happen. Somebody thrusts you, you lean back, and there it goes. So at least you have to have that protection. This is essential. Anything that's got vital organs under it, you want to have it protected well, because if you get hurt, that's the end of your fighting career, and that's it. For youth combat, for those who are not old enough to fight adults yet. Those armor requirements are exactly the same as the adults as far as what areas you're protecting. But the way they throw their blows is completely different. They have what they call directed touch. They literally just go like this. There's no swinging involved until you start to get of age. When you start getting around 15, 16 years old, then you're swinging. But it's a padded, it's just a little padded weapon, so it's basically like playing with a pool noodle. So you've got some protection there. But your armor requirements are, as far as what areas you have to have protected, are exactly the same. You have to have your neck protected, you have to have your head protected, your elbows, your kidneys, and your knees. And obviously, if you're a male, you have to wear a cup and your gender-specific, protection. The other thing that you have to wear is a demi-gauntlet on your sword hand, at least. On your shield hand, unless you have a shield basket, we can get into this a little more extensively at the Monday night practices, where you can see some examples. All that's necessary if you don't have a shield basket is a hockey glove with a rigid thumb. That's it. Again, play it against sports. I hate to keep reiterating that, but a lot of equipment you can get there on the cheap. And again, this is for people who need to get stuff so that they can get out there fighting as quickly as possible. I made this one. It's pretty simple to make. I have the pattern if you want the pattern. And it's a simple process of putting it together. I have mine riveted with several straps that you can come up here and take a look at, but it basically keeps your wrist protected. And when you have your van brace on, any shots that you're taking in here to the wrist, you're well covered. I also had some elbows made. This is the kind that I wear under my shield. You have to have rigid material covering all 3 points of your elbow on your shield side. This is vacuum formed plastic, and I have the foam padding already attached. The lacing holds it in place. And once you slide it on, it goes over and covers your elbow fine. If you want your shoulders protected, you can get little spalders, and these will attach to the shoulders like this, and that'll cover the cap of your shoulder. It's a good thing to have, especially when you're beginning. When you start to advance in your skill, your armor is going to change. Like I said, when I first started, I had a solid plate. Then I went to the lighter stuff. Then I went back to plate, mostly because this was for my persona. Another reason is that as my skill level increased, people started hitting me harder. And I was getting hit in places I wasn't accustomed to getting hit. As people are taking it easy on you, you're not going to get hit in the ribs. But when they say, okay, well, he's fighting a lot better, I need to hit him and kill him fast, you start getting hit in places that you're not used to. So your armor is going to change over time, back and forth. Another thing you could do to cover your breastplate, this is ABS plastic covered in velvet. Real easy to make. We have several different patterns going around the Barony. It's comfortable. You can wear it on the outside, on a tabard. Still looks like a nice piece of armor. Nobody would know it was plastic until they take it off. You can actually use any color velvet that you want, especially if you want to do it in your heraldry that you're thinking of, at least in those colors. This covers the back, this covers the front. It's a very simple thing to have. And last but not least, this was my first set of legs. These were aluminum. Again, you can see where the aluminum is great for about a year or two. After that, it's not so good. But you can also see, if you compare the two legs side by side, this is my shield side. This is my sword side, where nobody really hit me. If you compare One is a little more narrow than the other. Mostly is because it got bent, dinged, and things, and I had to bend it back where it was supposed to be. But these just got to the point where they were falling apart. The design of these, at least, what I liked about this, a lot of people have trouble hanging their legs off of their hips. For those who have been fighting for a long time, back when the SCA was first beginning, that's the only way they knew. So for them, that's very comfortable. For me, who came in much later, I hated it. Can't stand hanging things off my hips. So I have a slightly different transition from that. I don't have thigh protection. All I have is just pad. It's just a cotton batting with linen and canvas. Oops, excuse me. Sorry about that. This has a weight belt attached to it. This isn't rigid enough to protect your kidneys. What it is good for is keeping your lower back warm. When you're wearing heavy stuff on your shoulders, anytime you're out there, keeping your lower back warm, especially when you're getting to my age, when you're young and springy and rubbery, that's great, but when you're starting to get old and decrepit, keeping your joints warm and movable is a nice thing to have. So, the reason why I have these is it's lighter. It's a lot cooler in the summer. My knees are still protected. These are stainless. They cover my entire knee, but it's light. It's lighter than those are, and it's not as heavy as stainless steel knees with the full cuisse. These are what they would consider or call padded cuisses. Full cuisse would have either the ABS plastic covered in velvet or leather, or either stainless or aluminum. Those are pretty hefty, and it starts to wear on your hips. If you've ever worn a gun belt or anything like that, you know that wearing weight on your hips. Over an hour or two, it starts to kind of get a little uncomfortable, starts to dig into your hip bone, and you're like, when you're fighting, you want to be comfortable. So I went to these, and I don't have those issues. Questions?
What do you use for footwear?
Footwear, I wear actually Roper boots. The company that makes them is called Wolverine. It's doesn't have any shoelaces on it or anything. It just slides it on. But they don't look like your standard Ropers or cowboy boots or anything of that nature. But it looks nice. It gives a period appearance without having to deal with period issues. Like period shoes don't have any support in them. The soles aren't made for the kind of activity that we're doing on the field. They look beautiful. What some people have done is they have a period shoe, they've taken it to the cobbler, and they have vibrant soles put on. So you have sufficient grip, they've had insoles put inside of them. It's a completely period shoe, they just had some additions put on. You can do that. It's very simple. I'm working on, some people wear cleats and just cover them. I'm working on a period cover for cleats, so that I have serious foot issues when I'm fighting several hours every day, such as you would be at Penzik. Because you're out there and you're walking up and down hills, you're running across fields, you're in your armor almost 8 hours. From the time you muster and go down to the field to the time you come back up to your camp. And every single year, the only year I didn't have a problem is I wore high-top boots. But every single year since then, my feet have been killing me. So I said, I think this year I'm going to wear some cleats and make some covers so that they look pretty. So tournaments, those shoes don't give me an issue. But when you're fighting all day long, it's terrible. Any other questions?
So what are we looking at, like,
Investment-wise?
investment-wise, yeah, for a college student?
If you do it, where you're gonna make like a kiddie protection like this, and go with the sporting gear that goes under a tabard, something that's not gonna be visible. For the equipment alone, you may spend $100. Your helmet, on the other hand, is what's gonna cost you. Mine ended up costing me $475, and I'm still not happy with it. The one that I do want cost me almost $1,000. That'll be happening this summer. At the
But
same-
you've also been fighting, what, 10, 12, 14 years to upgrade to something like that?
Yeah, it takes you a while. You get what you can afford. They have what they call a spun top helm. Ugly as sin. I had one. In fact, some of the beginners down in my old group are wearing it to this day.
I'm still using this one top.
Yeah.
Over 15 years.
Yeah. Good helmet, solid helmet, cheap. You could get one that's mild steel for $75. Or you can go on eBay and get them really cheap. eBay is a good source to get used armor. Be careful though. If you're not sure about it, have somebody who's been fighting a while come and look at it. You want to get as much information as you can out of it. You don't want to fight anything on your head less than 16 gauge. Well, you can't fight anything on your head less than 16 gauge.
I think 16 gauge was legal for heads.
It is.
It's the bare
It's the
minimum.
bare minimum.
It's the bare minimum, and you should have at least 14 gauge
You
in
should.
some fashion on the dome. You can still get by with 16 gauge on the lower sides near the neck because it's generally not hit as often, but the crown of the helmet, you should be a minimum of
Yeah.
14 gauge.
I've had new fighters in my old group that saw a nice helm, and they brought it to practice. And when I inspected it, it was an 18 gauge mild steel, chromed out. I said, "You can't fight that." But they said it was SCA. I don't care what I said. You can't fight that. One shot from that, your head will explode. And that's not trying to hurt somebody. That's just physics. You can't stop fixing. For the youth fighters we have here, lacrosse helmets is what they're using, if I'm not mistaken. But I have seen youth fighters out there in adult steel helms. The problem you have with that is youth fighters, well,
Grow rapidly.
they grow. So, once you start getting into that a little more, it's something that you really have to, work your way up. If something that the youth is going to stick with, start them with a spun top. It's a safe helm that's been around forever. In the old days,
There's also a lot of youth that are covering the lacrosse. They're using mantles and plumes and things like that.
yes, they are.
So even though they're using the lacrosse helm, it doesn't necessarily
Yes,
look
they are.
like the bright white lacrosse helmet
Yes.
because they're putting like a mantling on it and feathers and all sorts of stuff
That's
to
the
cover
good
it.
thing about most anything. You can cover it and make it look nice. But because you're just beginning, I go with the spun top for now. The problem with the spun top, and the only issue is it's really not made to fit the human head. Unless you got a big old round grate. If you notice this, it's shaped more like a head. When you slide your head into it, that's some stout foam.